Morning, everyone. I'm Claire Wright. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Deputy Chief Exec and the Finance Director at Derbyshire Healthcare, and I'm also the Board LGBT Plus Champion.
And I'm Leanne Walker. I'm our network chair. I've been doing that role since just before Christmas. I use she, her pronouns. And my role at Derbyshire Healthcare is Equal Network Advisor, which is a lived experience role. So I have a lived experience of accessing and working in our trust services.
Brilliant, yeah. So that's the plan for the session that you can see on the screen. We're going to have a bit of a chat about what have we learnt so far in our network. I'm going to hear a bit from you, hopefully, get a bit interactive, get your things ready in that poll section in the stage. Get a feel for where everyone else is. And then the highlight of the session, I'm sure, is going to be a personal story from Leanne. So I look forward to hearing that as well. So let's go on to the poll straight away. So Rich, if you could move us on, that poll question is, what's your experience of LGBT plus networks where you work? So you've got a network, but you've never been. You've got a network and you go as often as you can, or you don't have a network that you know of. Okay, so they're the questions. Let's see where everyone is on that. So you've got a network, but you've never been. You've got a network and you do go as often as you can, or you don't have a network that you know of. So we've got a few votes. It's looking really even at the minute between there is a network but never been, and you've got a network and you go as often as you can. Oh, right. Okay, so now it's really evenly spread across all three of those now. We've got quite a lot of people who don't have a network that they know of as well. Okay, so really, really even, well, quite evenly spread. So we'll keep it just for a moment or two longer. Okay, it's evened out, I think, now. So what we're showing is 37.5% have a network, but they've never been. 25% of you have a network and you go as often as you can. And 37.5% don't have a network that you know of. Okay, so that's really interesting mix, and so that means it's going to be a really varied set of conversations that we have. Post your questions in the Q&A, and if we don't have time to cover them here, Leanne will be on panels later as well, so we can cover it, or you can get in touch with us separately. So that's brilliant. So let's get back to the session, and I'll hand over to Leanne as chair to start sharing with us what have we learned.
Next slide, please. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to lead on from that and talk about network visibility. So I joined our trust about 5 years ago, and at that time we didn't have a network. And it was only a year or two later when we developed a network that I became aware of it. And when I became aware, it was something that I was interested in, but I wasn't out at work at the time. So I worried about how people would, what they would think, or whether they would judge me for going. And so I just kind of distanced myself from the LGBT plus network. And I think for me, this is where visibility is really important. It was really easy for me to just hear about the network once and then kind of just forget about it and not get involved. So I think there can be a worry about being overly visible, overly posting stuff around the network, around key dates and that. But for me, actually, it was really important to learn that our trust was actively doing work to support the LGBT plus community, to see that they were taking it seriously and that they were actively trying to change things and improve things. So yeah, it was about 2 years ago that I got involved in our staff network, and that was following key visible events. So I saw we had a LGBT plus conference, and like I said, I felt like the trust then was really taking equality, diversity, inclusion seriously. And that then led me to then get involved, and it's been a really valuable place for me to share experiences and feel connected to people who understand difficulties members of the LGBT plus community face. So I forgot to say I am a member of the LGBT plus community. I identify as gay, and like I say, I wasn't out at work for a long period of time, and it was only when the network became more visible and more work was being done that I then felt able to join and get involved. So I think it is important not just to plan ahead for, not just for Pride, but other key dates like today. And I think visibility here is really important in showing, the LGBT plus community that this work is being taken seriously. So I think another key thing that we have learned is the importance of leadership support. So for me, I think it's important to demonstrate and have support for networks across all levels of the workplace. So for example, in our trust, if you want to come to the network, it's protected time, so a manager or no one can say you can't go if you want to go. And it's been really important to have leadership support in having those conversations and supporting people to attend if they want to. So Claire is our champion. If you wanted to add a sentence or two there, Claire.
Yes, I would love to. Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so I'm on the board, so of course I get a lot of opportunity to influence policy and all that kind of broad strategy stuff. But also I take every opportunity, like today, as an ally of the LGBT community, to really put my voice in there and really try to be heard and support and amplify voices. So I would say, as you will be a leader in your role, whatever your role. So it's about ensuring that you do your bit. I always say at corporate induction about our networks and how important they are. And I also use examples of how you as individuals in your role, in your team, can be actively inclusive. So as a leader, it's really important to emphasize that. So for example, if you're straight, don't assume everybody you talk to is straight, because they're not. So I always say that at induction, because it's a nice, simple little thing to just say, oh yeah, good point, to remind everyone. So really ensure that protected time is real. So not just to attend the network, but also things like Prides. So if you come on our stand on Pride, then that's protected time too. It's things like that. Really make sure it counts and be as active as you can, because those little things really matter a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. So I think, it's really important to have leadership modelling actually this behaviour and support for the network. I think it makes a real difference. And so we've learned the importance of a wider equality, diversity and inclusion structure. So our chair and co-chair roles take up a lot of time, and they are additional to people's day jobs, so we don't have any extra funding or time allocated to those roles. And so the EDI team has been invaluable in supporting what we're doing as a network. And I guess it also sends a message that it's not about being one person's business, but it's actually everybody's business, and the EDI team help to support that. And then the importance of communication support. So we have learned that the importance of sending out a unified message, so making sure we communicate regularly with the communications team about what, say, acronyms we're using or what flag we're using or terminology. They have also been really important in supporting that visibility element. So they, for example, communications send out trust-wide emails, trust-wide newsletters and updates, and as a network we're able to feed in and get our message spread across the trust. So like I say, it's that visibility component. And then I think another thing we have learned is that our network has highlighted issues which were previously less visible. So it kind of appears as if our trust has got an increase in difficulties in equality, diversity, and inclusion. But actually what it's done is brought out issues which have been there all along, but have been previously less visible. So, as we have grown, as visibility has grown, more and more people have shared their issues or their worries or their problems with us. And like I say, it appears as if there's more issues, but we take it as a real positive that people feel able to talk to us, and we're able to work together to address those concerns and issues and make it a better place to work for all. And then, so we have also learned that we need different avenues of feedback that people can feed into the network. So we have an email list where we send out updates, and some people are happy just to feed in this way. Some people prefer coming to formal network meetings, and other people prefer, for example, getting involved via Facebook, our Trust Facebook page, commenting on posts, etc., sharing things that way. And I think, yeah, what we've learned is just to have the more avenues of feedback and feed in, the better. Different people work in our trust, work different shift patterns. So, for example, night shifts, we don't hold network meetings at 1 a.m. So people who work night shifts might want to feed in different ways. So it's just about opening up those avenues. And, you know, there is no right or wrong avenue. All avenue of getting in contact is good with us. And then we have also learned that people come to our network for different reasons, and this is something we have been learning about a lot recently. So I think that I'll talk through this one more shortly, but I think it's the importance of listening and acting on feedback and then adapting based on that feedback. So I think in some of this slide, it's important when you're setting up a network not to set it up in an isolated silo. It's not going to function well. It's good to get the support of leadership, communications, the wider EDI structure. And I think it's about giving it a go and learning, so trial and error, learning and evolving along the way. Next slide, please. So, ally involvement has been an interesting conversation we've had, and I've heard many interesting conversations around staff LGBT+ networks. So, it's always an ongoing debate about the role that allies play in the networks. And from a few local networks, I've recently been hearing that they felt that their networks were made up of mainly allies as opposed to members of the LGBT+ community. And I guess, so our network, we welcome allies, absolutely. But then I also question, is an LGBT+ network an LGBT+ network if there's no members of the LGBT+ community? So I think what we have been thinking about recently is that we don't necessarily know who isn't in the room. So we don't necessarily know we don't know who is in the room, sorry, so we don't necessarily know who isn't in the room. So yeah, we welcome allies currently, and you know, people can attend, for example, if they have a family member who is a member of the community and they want to support. So I guess we don't always know why someone is wanting to get involved, but they are there because of a reason, and they want to improve and work with us to make the service better. So yeah, I don't have the answer to that one. I think it's just one to think about further. We've learned the importance of networking, so attending these kinds of events, working with local organisations, linking in every now and then, and being part of the wider support system, so you know, you don't feel like you're doing this on your own. And I guess ultimately, like I said, it's learning by doing. It has to be in partnership with people who the work is going to impact. So in terms of it being co-produced, so although Claire is our champion, it's very much owned by the staff and the colleagues. They very much direct what we're doing in the network, and we learn from the feedback we have. It's always evolving, and yeah, I think it's not about setting it up and thinking it has to be perfect to begin with. It's just setting it up and learning as you go along. And there's always lots more to do. There's no end point. It always keeps going. Do you want to add anything, Claire?
No, I think I was going to say, I'm just keeping an eye on the time, Leanne, actually, and I'm just wondering whether it might be a great idea to quickly pop to the next poll, and then you share your personal story, and then come back if we have time to do the evolution later. What do you think? Because I'm just Yeah, I think it'd be, because I would hate for everyone listening to miss out. So the poll, just a quick one again, just ahead of hearing about Leanne's personal story. And it's those little things that matter. So we introduce ourselves using our pronouns, and it's just interesting to know at the minute, do you use your pronouns in your email sign off? Well, email sign off, and you could also expand that to other things, of course. So is it a straightforward yes? Is it a no? Is it a not yet, but you're going to? And let's have a look at that. So far, there's quite a lot of not yet, but I will. We've got not that many on the yes yet, because it is quite new, and also it takes a bit of practice to get used to remembering to say it as well. So it's all good, all good. So again, it's quite mixed again. So mix across the yes, no. So last couple of moments, if you're gonna just click, please do share. Let's hear. So we've got quite a lot of no's, and so I would really. So let's say that. Let's pause there so we can move then on to, so in summary, we'll move on to Leanne in a second. So in summary, we've got just over 18% said yes, 59% said no, and 22.7% have said not yet, but you will. So something to think about. Take that away and think about that. Look, you could always look at Stonewall. They've got a good link about what's it all about using pronouns. But I'm going to pause there. So let's now just hear from Leanne about her personal story about LGBT plus inclusion and why it matters.
Okay, this, I'm going to do a spoken word. It's called Boyfriend, Engagement, House and a Wedding Dress. I wrote it a few years ago for a conference specifically around mental health and LGBT plus. It's around my own journey of growing up and struggling with mental health difficulties and going through services in the trust that I now work for, and the importance of those small things. So in it, I talk about CAMS, which for those who don't know is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. So yeah, this is called Boyfriend, Engagement, House and a Wedding Dress. I was 5 when someone said, "You're a girl, you can't wear shorts, you've got to wear a dress." I cried, even though I didn't understand it all then. I was 9 when my mother said, "Do I need to buy a hat tie? Think the wedding set." She smiled as I stood by. My best friend, a guy. I looked around when I was 12, people talking about who they fancied, liked best. I thought, I need to join in, be like the rest. And as we talked, I thought, perhaps I'm feeling less. You see, I actually couldn't have cared any less. Those feelings inside I squished down and compressed. Boyfriend, engagement, house and a wedding dress. I don't know when I started drowning, but the water was filling my lungs. I was gasping for breath. Who am I asked, for I am a stranger inside my own head. I was 15 when I first went to CAMS. The anxiety rippled through my veins in a way I simply cannot explain. Things were hard for me, outside of questions around my own sexuality. Among low mood and anxiety sat self-harm and suicidality. And the words spun inside my head. Boyfriend, engagement, house and a wedding dress. I was called into a room and I don't remember an awful lot. But there is one question that I still haven't forgot. Do you have a boyfriend? I looked at her blankly. I could have sworn she already knew, that she could just see right through this pretense. Can't you see I'm drowning? I screamed inside my head. The question held me under and I morphed into solid lead. You see, I'd been playing a character, someone who wasn't me, filled with fear and that pure anxiety. And in those few seconds I thought, perhaps I'd say yes. Maybe I'd carry on playing this fictional character forever instead. I began to convince myself that perhaps I could learn to live with this drowning feeling of dread. Now, if boyfriend had been changed to partner, perhaps my heart would have been lighter. If the question had been open, if there had been room for discussion made clear there'd be no repercussion, perhaps the water would have drained. Perhaps I could have explained. I feared all those words and phrases I'd already heard, mixed in with a variety of unkind words. You know them. I don't need to say them. I feared it would change things. So I stayed silent and just shook my head and closed my ears to everything else that was being said. I was 18, still in CAMS. I've been living in this fear that perhaps my worker wouldn't want to come near me again if I told her. The stereotypes had been squashed into my own brain, whitewashed and ashamed, real or imagined. I feared it would change things. This therapeutic relationship we'd established over time, perhaps it would disintegrate into nothing, completely unwind. And I left, age 19, with those words unspoken. Don't get me wrong, CAMS completely changed me, made me, but I had one final battle yet to win. I was yet to be free. At university, I fought daily between being myself and this vision that others had for me. Grow your hair, Leanne, it would look so lovely, and find yourself a nice man. That's the best life plan. Acceptance and rejection. The fight to become myself became a fight with myself. It coursed through my body and burst out through my fingertips. Someone had turned the tap. It started with a single drip. I was 20, University Mental Health Services. He smiled as I walked in and spoke to me softly, asked me all those questions I'd heard already, but something was different. I saw the flag pinned proudly above his door. Have you? I looked into his eyes as he began his sentence. Have you got a boyfriend? Girlfriend? Seeing anyone? I smiled. Now, it wasn't easy ever since I was a child. It had been instilled into me. Boyfriend, engagement, house, and a wedding dress. But through his words, I began to fight myself less. I found myself standing where I had been drowning. Honestly, I won't judge you. You know that, right? You can tell me anything. It will be all right. And for the first time in my life, I prepared myself to say the words I had said to myself nearly every day. My name is Leanne and I am gay. It was then that the rest of the water drained away. Perhaps I'd float upwards, for my heart was a feather and together we talked. A single conversation, but I smiled as I walked away, and to this day I remember the feeling. I felt free. I could finally be myself. And of course, this story doesn't end here, for there has been many other challenges and times I still feel that fear. But to be able to be myself has been better than anything else. And these scars I carry remind me of my fight. When people tell me I'm not doing my life quite right, and I speak because I fought so long to find my voice, and I speak for those that don't have a choice.
Brilliant. Thanks, Leanne. So, perfect. Thanks. Go on, Leanne.
Thank you. So I think for me, like I said, the network was a space where I could talk openly about my sexuality. And I've been on this journey my whole life where the messages were boyfriend, engagement, house, and a wedding dress. And it was this journey of not exploring or talking about who I am. And I think there's a power in connecting and relating with other people who have that understanding of this journey that, as members of the LGBT plus community, we have often been on in understanding ourselves and facing the wider world. So I think, yeah, there's a power of knowing the workplace is serious about EDI stuff, inclusion, and it does make a difference. And I personally feel one of the keys to happiness is happiness at work, is being able to bring your whole self to work. And for me, the network has encouraged me to be able to do that outwardly, and the network being visible and doing the work that we're doing and being supported across the trust has allowed me to be myself, openly be myself, and feel comfortable and confident in that. So I hope that my personal story demonstrates the difference that those small things can make, like the language you choose, and yeah, outwardly showing you're inclusive, and I guess also understanding, yeah, that coming out is never a one-time thing. Whenever I, have had a new job or started studying at a new place, I feel like it's a journey of having to come out multiple times. So it's not just one-time things, but like I say, the network made a massive personal difference to me, knowing it was there and seeing the work that it was doing. I'm aware we've got 5 minutes left. I don't know if we want to go back to some of the slides, Claire, or if you want to, well.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I just didn't want to lose the opportunity to make sure that you could share your story without it being rushed. So, Rich, if we go back to the slide that says network support, and then Leanne can talk through some more of that, what we've done in COVID time, and some more of the support. So, you know how it's so important, as Leanne's been describing, for her personally to be confident to be her true self at work. That network's played a key part in that. So I just think it'll be nice that'll probably wrap it up nicely.
Yeah, so one thing we've been exploring at Network recently is why people come to our network, and we have heard that actually some people come because they are looking for that peer support and connecting with others, as opposed to that formal agendaed meeting. So we are currently trialling having 1 month peer support meeting purely for members of the LGBT plus community, and then the next month a formal meeting. And this was something which really evolved out of COVID. So during COVID, all formal network meetings were stepped down, but we carried on having informal network meetings where it was a peer space for allies and members of the community. And yeah, from discussions there and from email feedback that we listened and acted on that. So it's been really interesting that we've had different people click the accept button for the peer support meetings as opposed to the formal meetings. So we've had people, a range of people accept who have never actually come to a formal meeting. So I think actually it's understanding why people want to get involved and what they want out of it, and it does differ. So that's something we're trialing, and like I say, it's about learning and evolving as we go along. During COVID, we also set up a WhatsApp group, so it's with our personal phone numbers, and it's from colleagues who are part of the LGBT plus community. And again, we found that really invaluable space to discuss any concerns and worries, and it's a really, really useful space. We've had some really good feedback from that, so that's something that we welcome any members of the LGBT plus community within our trust to join. And some of the other support we offer, so we have recently been hearing a lot that colleagues don't feel like they are equipped with enough knowledge around LGBT plus terminology, and they often ask, well, who can I go to learn more? So we've we've heard that there's kind of an absence of training in this area. So through that feedback, we've been able to push for some training, which we have coming up next month. So that's really positive. So that's something we've been supporting as a network. We also do things, more formal things like looking at policies, making sure that language is inclusive and documents, and then we take issues forward that we hear from our members. So a recent issue has been the use of the NHS rainbow during COVID, and the impact it's had on the Pride community. So from that, we have then moved to the progressive Pride flag and kind of rebranded. And our communications team has been important there to share those messages that this is what we're using going forward, and we are not going to use the rainbow to represent the NHS. And that is something which came from our network. And it's taken as a chair, it's taken those things forward that we hear and action them. Well, I don't know if there's, well, we have 1 minute remaining, so.
That's cool. So there's one question I can see, Leanne, and it says, how did we manage to get protected time to enable attending the network? And the person who posted that question said they felt uncomfortable to ask. So I don't know what you think on that, Leanne. My perspective on that is about you need to ask, because it's absolutely valid and reasonable. So I think just take that step. There's no harm asking at all.
Yeah, and I think that's where the importance of actually management and leadership role modeling and being vocal about it being protected time. So if anyone has any problems, they are able to go to Claire, for example, who is able to have those conversations. So I think it's having that support, that leadership support actually, to make this and embed this and make it happen.
I hope you've enjoyed the session. We've enjoyed giving it, haven't we, Leanne? And thank you, Leanne, for being awesome as always.